Has Qatar come out stronger now that the Saudi-led blockade has ended? This tiny Gulf state had everything going for it. A booming economy, the World Cup just a few years away. But then, in the summer of 2017, this happened.
Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt and the UAE have all cut diplomatic ties with Qatar.
Qatar seems to be in crisis as more Middle Eastern countries sever diplomatic ties with Doha, the nation's capital.
A group of Arab states led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt have cut diplomatic ties with Qatar.
After 3.5 tense years, many thought this scene would be unimaginable.
We expect no handshake because of COVID, but certainly, brotherly greetings. I stand corrected. There is a hug.
Absolutely.
And most probably that says more than anything else, Hashem.
The blockade of Qatar by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt has ended. But who came out on top? To understand, we need to go back to when it all started in June 2017. The anti-Qatar quartet accused Doha of supporting terrorism and destabilizing the region, allegations that were all denied. They then launched a land, air and sea blockade of Qatar, expecting it to crash its economy and leave the country without food and other vital imports. But this happened instead.
The IMF says Qatar's economy is expected to grow 2.6% this year. That's because Qatar responded to the blockade by developing new trade routes and using its seaport more.
The decision to withdraw from OPEC will enable the country to increase production outside of the cartel's constraints.
2 years back, the local production did not exceed, for the fruits and vegetables, did not exceed 10%. Today we are almost 30%.
The quartet also issued 13 demands on Qatar. They included shutting down Al Jazeera, ending support for the Muslim Brotherhood, cutting diplomatic ties with Iran, and closing a Turkish military base. None of those demands were officially met. In some instances, this happened instead.
These are Turkish troops arriving in Qatar. They are part of a long-standing military agreement between the two countries, but whose deployment was expedited at a time Qatar is facing a blockade by 3 of its GCC neighbours and their allies.
Farms like this all over Iran have increased production to fill the gap in the Qatari market after Saudi Arabia, the UAE and other countries severed supply routes.
Our sovereignty is a red line. We don't accept anybody interfering our sovereignty.
The blockade failed to cripple Qatar's economy, humble its foreign policy or scrap its security arrangements. To make matters worse, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, lost his benefactor in the White House. So it seems MBS wasn't willing to take any more chances.
Khashoggi was in fact murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were going to in fact make them pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are.
Against all odds, tiny Qatar, outnumbered, outgunned and isolated, came out not only intact, but perhaps stronger and more independent. Thanks to the blockade, Qatar has separated its foreign policy from the Saudi-dominated Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC. It's also learned to be economically more self-sufficient. It seems Saudi Arabia and the UAE miscalculated Qatar's resilience and the support of its friends. Abdul Halik Abdullah, a political analyst in Dubai, who was one of the foremost defenders of the blockade 3 years ago, told the Financial Times the cost of fighting was too high. There is a realization now that this is the black sheep of the family, and we just have to put up with it. These have been the worst 3.5 years in the history of the GCC. As per the agreement, there was a face-saving courtesy. Qatar agreed to suspend lawsuits against the blockading nations at the World Trade Organization and International Court of Justice. On the surface, the Gulf region seems to be back to normal, but the underlying causes of the original rift still remain. Of course, there were probably some backroom deals we don't know about, but one thing is certain. Qatar's defiance and resolve has paid off, at least for now.